There's been a lot of criticism of President Biden for issuing a pardon to his son Hunter. From the liberal side, these critics are saying he's undermining the rule of law. And I understand their point, but I think that they're missing some aspect of the situation that's crucial, which has got to do with the state of America right now. If I have a lifelong habit of asking myself, what would I do if I were in the position of the president? And if I were in Joe Biden's position, I'm not sure whether I would have pardoned my son, but I can easily imagine that giving what seemed like the proper weight to all the elements, I would go ahead and here's what I think would be the way I would look at it. First of all, I believe that it's true that if Hunter Biden had not been the son of the President of the United States, and incidentally, at a time when we had a Republican Party opposing a party like this, not all Republican parties, no political party has behaved the way this one does. But they went after Hunter Biden because they go after every Democratic president since Bill Clinton was elected in '92 with whatever they can find to hurt him. I mean, there's no sense that there's a cooperative relationship between the opposition and the president to do the nation's business in any way. And so they went after, under Trump, they had a whole project of trying to see whether they could create the image in the American public's eye of the Biden crime family. So if he had not been the president's son, I'm pretty well persuaded that he would never have been prosecuted. And I get this opinion from having listened to a number of legal experts, like on MSNBC, people who are experienced prosecutors, and they said, ordinarily, in a circumstance like this, with the facts of the case, first-time offender, and all that, yeah, the prosecutor would not have brought this to trial. There would have been a different kind of a settlement, much easier on the defendant who had done some wrong, but wouldn't be put through what Hunter Biden was put through. So, as president, assuming that that information is correct, I would look at my son's having been tried and convicted and awaiting sentencing as basically not justice, but as an injustice done by a rogue political party to get back at the president. So why shouldn't, just in this place, why shouldn't the president use the fact that he's president to make things better, more just? So I would be tempted. But people bring up the ways in which it seems a bit discreditable. It looks like he's using his powers for personal purposes. And everybody's been saying, he said he wouldn't do it. And that was praiseworthy. And I agreed at the time that that was praiseworthy. He was demonstrating something about the contrast between the lawless Donald Trump and his lawless Republican Party, and the way that Trump abused the law, broke the law, abused the pardon power to get his accomplices off. He was displaying by that statement that he was, here's a different way that we have in America. We believe in the rule of law, and I will be scrupulous in applying it. I liked that when it happened. I thought, yeah, show the American people what decency in government looks like, and stark contrast with the indecency that Donald Trump represents in almost every aspect of his behavior as president or as someone vying for the presidency. Demonstrate to the American people the difference between someone who respects the rule of law and therefore allows things to unfold without acting personally to like Trump does when all he cares about is getting his accomplices off, rewarding them for staying silent. No, I'm going to use the pardon power scrupulously. I liked it. But if I were in Joe Biden's position right now, I would think, to hell with that. Look what the American people just did in this election. They were shown in countless ways the stark contrast between the ugliness of Donald Trump and all he represents. Most recently, Hegseth for Secretary of Defense, Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. I mean, it is just so stark, and yet the American people just elected him. So liberals have been doing all kinds of noble things to show the American people, no, let's not go that way into the darkness and into fascism. Let's go this way and maintain basic American values. But the American people, I mean, it was a close election, but even if Kamala had won 48.5 instead of losing 48.5 approximately, it still would have been what? Just about half the people chose that. I think that liberals are losing sight of the enormity, and I don't mean size, I'm talking about the monstrosity of what the American people just did. They're concerned about what kind of example is he setting. He's giving cover for Donald Trump. He's undermining the image of justice properly done. Well, I do think that pardoning Hunter Biden is justice being done, but I understand that the Republicans are going to be able to, as they have been doing, beat the gong. But what difference does it make? We've got a problem here about how to get something through to the American people that either they have not been able to see very well, or somehow the American people no longer cares about basic American values, one or the other. And we got to deal with whichever it is or whatever combination it is. But these noble gestures are like building a little sandcastle on the edge of the ocean with heavy waves beating down on it. It just gets swept away. What's the point? Well, there doesn't seem to be any much point. The Republicans are going to make up what they can't actually point to. Like the Biden crime family, like Biden enriching himself off his son's thing. I mean, they don't need anything to be true for them to say it. In fact, it sometimes seems as though something that's true is sort of, they're allergic to it. But they're going to accuse Biden of all kinds of things, and they've been successful. I mean, American people went to the polls, majority of them thinking we were in a recession when we had the most vibrant economy in the advanced democratic capitalist world. I mean, why should he think he's going to get any credit for doing anything? The need to reestablish these things has to be conducted in a different way. I mean, we got into trouble having Merrick Garland trying to be noble or whatever it was, delaying for 2 years until the January 6th committee pushed him into dealing with what was visible from the beginning after the insurrection, which is that there are people at the top that should be investigated, not just the people who went into the Capitol and committed some kinds of crimes with that. The people who incited and in some respects probably organized this insurrection were the ones that should be investigated. And Merrick Garland, in his liberal fashion, makes a little noble gesture. Well, to hell with those noble gestures. We need something much more effective, because the whole noble gesture thing has been played out for 4 years, played out by Kamala. Uh, all the things that the American people should have recognized, all but a handful of fringe Nazi types should have voted for Kamala Harris just on the basis of basic American values. So if I'm President Biden and I'm looking at all this stuff this way, and I'm thinking, well, it doesn't really matter whether I do things, so impeccably that, there will be stories about me like George Washington saying, I cannot tell a lie, and, all these things nobody's going to talk about that. I've been a good president with a lot of success, actually, in some important areas, and I haven't gotten credit for any of it. I've performed probably better than most presidents in the post-World War II era. I'll probably be rated, well, I don't know, there's a Gaza problem, but that's another story. Anyway, I'm thinking as Biden, I've done a lot of good things. I got a lot accomplished under very difficult circumstances. Who would have thought that a president could get through the kind of stuff I got through Congress in this circumstance, including having a Democratic majority that was undone by people like Joe Manchin. And, I got a lot done, and I got no credit for it. I achieved an economy that was, quote, the envy of the world, and I didn't get any credit for it. So what am I accomplishing by allowing an injustice done to my son to stand? Well, to hell with this noble gesture thing. My choice is between doing something that doesn't matter, that doesn't register on the American people, that doesn't have the impact one would have hoped, and letting my son be victimized by my enemies. Or I can use the power that I have as president, my being president being the only reason he got prosecuted. I can use the power I have as president to save my son. What can I do as president if what I've done doesn't get me above a 39% approval rating? To hell with that. I love my son. For him, I can accomplish something, and that's what I'm going to do. That's what I would think if I were Biden. And I don't rule out the idea that maybe there are costs to it more than I'm imagining. I think it's, it's like a puff into a heavy wind. Or to do something because I'm president and trying to be the noble ideal of a president, even though that doesn't seem to save the democracy any. Or I can act as the father of this young man whom I love, whose life has been tough enough without having these enemies of mine doing everything they can to destroy him, because that's a way of getting at me. That's what I would have done, I think. And who knows what all the consequences of things are going to be. But so far, the consequence of maintaining the noble gesture just don't measure up to the love one has for one's son, as victimized by injustice with me as the ultimate target. What do you think? Anyway, I'm Andy Schmuckler, and usually I'm talking about big stuff, and I'm going to be back in a few minutes talking about big stuff. But occasionally, I pay attention to what's going on at the day-by-day, play-by-play thing. And sometimes I feel like sharing what I see. And this is one of those times. I'm going to be back and talking about 3 situations that I've studied where a force of brokenness, destruction, evil has taken over a major actor in the human world. The slave power back in the middle of the 19th century. The Nazi fascist regime in Germany in the wake of World War I and leading into World War II. And then in our time, the transformation of the Republican Party from a normal American party, which is a mixture of constructive and destructive, which is a fairly decent democratic institution, into what has become over the last 30 years, which is something quite ugly, reasonably called a force of fascism, reasonably seen as something which is a coherent force that consistently works to make the human world worse. And that's my definition of evil. So I'm going to be talking about these 3 episodes that I've studied where evil has taken over an actor, in one case a region, in one case a nation, and in our case a political party. So, and if you want to see these kinds of ideas developed, please go to my website, betterhumanstory.org. Talk with you again soon. Thank you. Please subscribe, by the way, and support me if you like the work that I'm doing here. Thanks. Bye-bye.